Incredible, Millionaire discovers Maid being humiliated, reveals life-changing transformation. Jack Thompson was the picture of success. Glittering chandeliers hung from the high ceilings of his Minneapolis mansion, casting a rainbow of reflections over the polished marble floors. The laughter of the elite echoed through the hallways, but it all faded into a distant hum when Jack's gaze landed on Maria. She wore a worn-out uniform and a gentle smile as she served drinks, but tonight was different. An obnoxious guest, loud and entitled, leaned into Maria's space. "Can't you do your job without looking so miserable?" The words sliced through the room, puncturing the festive atmosphere. Silence settled, tension thick and palpable. Jack's heart raced. For a moment, he felt a wave of shame crash over him, a stark contrast to the wine flowing freely in the glasses around him. All his life, Jack had been detached, moving through success like a ghost. He had built an empire from nothing, but as he watched Maria stand tall despite the humiliation, memories flooded his mind. He recalled the late nights she bravely labored, exhausted but determined, her children's dreams hanging in the balance. He saw her spirit, buried beneath layers of expectations and grueling work, and it churned something deep within him. "Hey!" Jack shouted, his voice cutting through the tension. The room went quiet as all eyes turned toward him. The laughter of the wealthy fell away, replaced by astonished whispers. He had never intervened before, never felt like it was his place. Yet, here he was, alighting a flicker of hope, a light he wished for himself. "Don't speak to her like that," Jack added, his breath catching. "Maria deserves respect." A soft gasp lingered through the crowd. Some were taken aback, while others exchanged knowing glances as if waiting for the other shoe to drop. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." In the hush, Jack felt a crack forming in his lifelong facade. Was this what it meant to be human? The dynamic shifted after that moment. With every polite word exchanged with Maria during her brief breaks, stories flowed between them, her hopes, her sacrifices, her dreams of education lingering just out of reach. Days rolled into weeks, and Jack began to question the very ethics that had paved the way for his success. Advocacy for fair wages and respect for domestic workers slipped past his lips before he thought twice. Yet, every supportive word drew backlash from his peers, whispers of betrayal curling like smoke from their mouths. That fateful night at the local community meeting, Jack stood at the forefront, ready to confront injustice. His heart raced with determination, though trepidation crept in. The atmosphere crackled around him as he spoke, words raw and unfiltered. The invisible chasm between classes seemed to shrink with each plea for empathy, a heart-to-heart that made room for hope. But just as the tide appeared to shift, a fractured voice interrupted, throwing shadows into the light. And then, the big reveal: Maria received a scholarship. Fear intertwined with joy, Jack's heart clenched at the thought. Would her triumph provoke envy among the privileged who stared back? Would her future pose a threat to the tightly woven world he occupied? Jack stared into the crowd, panic rising. His burgeoning friendship with Maria hinged on this critical moment. Could he shed the skin of privilege and stand beside her unflinchingly, not wavering against the whispers of dissent? Or would he allow the fear of losing everything to dim the spark of change he'd ignited? As the walls of uncertainty closed in, he took a deep breath, the answer just beyond reach, leaving the room teetering on the edge of transformation. The room buzzed, an undercurrent of tension flickering like an unsteady flame. Jack held his breath, every pair of eyes now boring into him, waiting for his next move. 1,000 thoughts danced in his mind, doubt trying to break through his newfound resolve. What did he really know about standing up against power, against wealth? Yet, in the depth of his heart, a fierce determination sparked. "Maria," he began, searching for her gaze. He needed her strength beside him, needed her affirmation. "Your scholarship is a step forward, and it's a step we should all celebrate, not fear." This was more than just about her, it was a wake-up call for everyone in that room. The wealthy gathered here had become blind to the struggles of those who served them. Their comfort had clouded their humanity. Murmurs flared again, some supportive, others dripping with disdain. One woman, elegantly clad in silk, tried to interject, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "And what does that mean for us, Jack? Will we have to pay more for our coffee? Will our gardens mow themselves?" Jack felt a heat rising in his chest, but instead of retreating, he leaned in. "It means we have a chance to build bridges instead of walls. It means recognizing the worth of every single person, not just those who bow to our requests. It is the right thing to do." The air thickened, eyes darted, calculating the implications. Could they really change? Could he really change? Maria stood quietly, but her eyes shone, a beacon of courage guiding him forward. He saw something lift in her expression, hope threading through the fear. "You deserve this chance, Maria," he said, lowering his voice just enough to include her, to make it personal. "Don't let anyone bully you into thinking otherwise." She nodded slowly, a smile gracing her lips, and it felt like the warmth of sunlight breaking through a stormy sky. But then, another voice rang out, sharper, more sinister. "What is it you want from us, Jack? Some public relations stunt? Are you trying to play the hero now?" To that, Jack felt as if the ground shifted beneath his feet. The truth was, his motives were far more complicated than mere intentions. He could feel the stares dissecting him. Would they see a man trying to do the right thing or merely a privileged man grasping for redemption through someone else's struggle? As the meeting progressed, Jack could sense the divide growing. Those who had yearned for change found solidarity in Maria's scholarship, while others fumed quietly, plots weaving through their minds. Yet hope began to flicker brighter among the crowd. Maria's story inspired whispered conversations, shared glances of understanding. Jack's heart raced with every affirmation, every nod of agreement, each small revelation putting cracks in the wall of elitism that had ruled the room for too long. Days passed, and change began rippling outward. Jack still felt the weight of his privileged past, but he no longer shied away from the shadows it cast. He started organizing workshops, fundraising events, pushing for responsible practices that could uplift people like Maria. With every step, he felt both exhilarated and terrified. But beneath the surface, a slate of unanswered questions lay heavy on his shoulders. Would his efforts suffice? Could he really inspire a shift in perspective among his peers? And what repercussions would arise from those who felt challenged? Then one morning, an unexpected message popped up on his phone. It was from Maria, simply saying, "We need to talk. It's important." Jack's gut twisted with a rush of anxiety. The world felt fragile now, like glass about to crack. What could she want to say? He stood at a crossroads, the weight of uncertainty pressing down on him. As he stared at the screen, he realized he was about to embark on a journey that could change everything he had come to know. Would it be a blessing or a curse? With a racing heart, he tapped the screen to reply, feeling the inevitable drawing near. Jack's fingers trembled slightly as he typed back, "I'm here." When and where? A few minutes later, her response came through, "Café on 4th. 2 o'clock. The room felt stifling as he paced around his apartment, his heart thumping harder with each passing minute. He glanced at his watch. The seconds ticked by, each one a reminder of the looming conversation. There was a part of him that felt almost naive, a part that wondered if they could really address the tidal wave of emotions and complexities now swirling around them. He couldn't shake the feeling that something significant awaited him. As he approached the cafe later, its warm lights glowed invitingly against the overcast sky, yet Jack felt nothing but trepidation. The gentle murmur of conversations inside mixed with the aroma of fresh coffee, but he barely registered it. All he could think about was Maria and what revelation she might have. He spotted her sitting at a corner table, her striking features slightly shadowed by the afternoon light. She looked deep in thought, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. The moment he sat down, he saw the tension drain out of her shoulders just a bit, but the worry was still etched on her face. "Jack," she started, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've been thinking after everything that happened at the meeting, I realized something." She paused, gathering her courage. "It's about the scholarship. It means everything to me, but it also means responsibility. I have a chance to go to a good school, but I can't ignore the others who didn't get this opportunity." Jack leaned closer. "What do you mean?" "Maria, you've earned this. You deserve it." "I know, but what if I don't just want to be a recipient?" Her voice gained strength. "I want to give back, to help create opportunities for others who are in the same situation I was in. There are so many kids out there who need someone to fight for them." Jack's heart raced at her words. There it was. The spark of true transformation. They weren't just talking about charity, they were discussing a movement. "What are you thinking?" he asked, encouraged by her passion. "I want to start a program for disadvantaged youth, like a mentorship initiative," she said, her eyes lighting up. "But I can't do it alone. I need support people like you, Jack, who started to see things differently." For a moment, the world around him fell away. She was the beacon of hope he had been searching for, not just an idea but an embodiment of it. Could he do this? Could he stand alongside her and confront the comfort of his privileged world? "I'm in," he said, hardly believing the commitment rolling off his tongue. "I'll help. We can make this happen." Her face broke into a radiant smile, and it was such a vivid contrast to the uncertainties that had clouded them both moments before. He felt invigorated by her energy, his own doubts evaporating. Together, they could create a network for change, a bridge to equality, but just as quickly as the joy infused the moment, a shadow crossed over Maria's features. "Jack, there's something else." Her expression turned serious. "Some people won't be happy about this. They might oppose anything that threatens their status quo." The words hit like a cold wind, and Jack couldn't help but glance out the window, as if the very people they had to challenge might be lurking outside. The stakes were already rising, and this venture could invite backlash from those who clung tightly to their privilege. "What if they come after us?" he asked, a layer of unease creeping into his voice. "What if they want to silence us?" Maria reached out, her hand covering his. "We're in this together, Jack. If we're going to spark change, we have to be ready for a fight." As Jack met her gaze, they both knew they were standing on the edge of something monumental. With that understanding settled between them, a fierce determination solidified in his chest. This was no longer just about Maria or the scholarship. It was about confronting an entire system that perpetuated inequality, but just then, Jack's phone buzzed again, new message illuminating the screen: "We need to talk, and it's urgent. Meet me at the office." His pulse quickened. What now? Who was reaching out, and what did this mean for their plans? The walls felt like they were closing in, the impending storm ready to break. This journey was spiraling into something bigger than he ever anticipated. Would they be ready for the challenges ahead? Jack's heart raced as he read the message. "We need to talk, and it's urgent. Meet me at the office." The words hung in the air, heavy and foreboding. He glanced at Maria, who was still absorbing their earlier conversation. Her excitement, though infectious, was now mixed with a worry that mirrored his own. "Sorry, Maria. I need to take this," he said, barely able to keep his expression neutral. He stood up, trying to hide his anxiety behind a facade of calm. As he walked out of the cafe into the cool afternoon air, it felt as if he was stepping into a different world, one where the stakes suddenly felt much higher. The office was only a few blocks away, but every step felt like a small eternity. Jack's thoughts raced. The urgency of the message stirred a pit in his stomach. What could possibly be so urgent? Did someone find out about his conversations with Maria? What if they wanted to put a stop to their plans before they even got off the ground? When he arrived, the receptionist greeted him with a concerned look. "Jack, you're here. Mr. Porter has been waiting for you." Her fingers tapped nervously on her desk, and Jack felt the tension in the room like a thick fog. Porter was not just Jack's boss, he was a powerful figure in the community, a man who thrived on maintaining the status quo. Jack pushed open the door to his office, the familiar scent of leather and polished wood greeting him, but today it felt stifling. "Jack, sit down," Mr. Porter said, motioning to a chair across from him. His voice was grave, and Jack's stomach dropped. "We need to talk about your recent involvement with Maria." Jack took a deep breath. "I'm committed to helping her create the mentorship program. It's important work." Mr. Porter leaned forward, intensity etched into his features. "I'm aware of that. But you need to think about the consequences. There are people who will not support this initiative. In fact, they'll fight against it. And when they do, they will come after anyone who stands in their way." Jack felt the weight of those words. "Are you threatening me?" "Not threatening, Jack. Advising. I know you believe in what you're doing, but this is bigger than you think. The establishment won't take kindly to challenges, especially from someone like you." "What do you mean someone like me?" Jack challenged, anger rising. "Someone with privilege. Someone who has never had to fight for anything in his life," Mr. Porter snapped back, his eyes icy. "Your intentions are noble, but that can easily turn into your downfall." Jack clenched his fists, frustration and fear colliding. "You think I don't understand what's at stake? Maria is fighting for a cause that's much bigger than us." "I think you need to reassess your priorities," Mr. Porter said coldly. "You have a career to think about. A future." Jack's pulse quickened. "I can't just walk away from this," he said fiercely. "I can't ignore the way things are. I refuse to turn a blind eye." Mr. Porter sighed, his posture relaxing just slightly. "Then you need to be careful. There are powerful people who don't want to see change. Watch your back, Jack." As Jack left the office, a cloud of doubt formed. What should have been a moment of clarity now felt tainted by the fear of retaliation. But Maria's words echoed in his mind, igniting a fire within him. They were meant to challenge the system, and that was where real transformation began. Back at the cafe, he found Maria still in her seat, waiting. He could see the hope and excitement in her eyes, yet he couldn't shake the unease that hooked itself to his heart. "What did he say?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Jack searched for the right words. "He's worried. But I am more determined than ever." At that moment, he realized that they had already crossed a line. The fear that shadowed them could either drive them apart or forge them into something unbreakable. But as Jack met Maria's gaze, a realization washed over him. What if they were in deeper than they understood? What kind of backlash might they face? What sacrifices would be demanded of them? The pressure mounted, thickening the air between them. The stakes were rising, and the journey ahead felt as steep as it was uncertain. "Jack, are we really ready for this?" Maria asked softly, voice trembling with anticipation that a long silence fell between them. In that moment, he knew they were not just fighting for equality but for something even bigger, freedom from fear. And just like that, as they locked eyes, he sensed the looming storm was only just beginning. Jack felt the air heavy around them, a buzzing tension that almost crackled with electricity. Maria's question lingered in his mind like an unanswered riddle. Were they really ready for this? The weight of it settled like a stone in his gut. "I don't know," he finally replied, rubbing the back of his neck. "But we have to try, right?" Maria nodded slowly, her eyes glimmering with a mix of hope and apprehension. "I can't shake the feeling that we're standing on the edge of something huge. What if we take one wrong step? Then we adjust," Jack said, his voice firm despite the uncertainty swirling in his chest. "We fight back if we have to." We didn't come this far to back down now. As they sat across from each other, the cafe buzzed around them, oblivious to the brewing storm of determination at their table. Jack glanced at the hustle of city life outside the window. People hurried by, wrapped up in their routines, unaware of the changes lurking on the horizon. He needed to make them see. Jack, Maria started again, her expression serious. We can't just focus on the program. If we want to spark change, we need to rally people, get them involved. It's going to take a lot more than just us. He leaned forward, encouraged by her fire. You're right. We should start brainstorming ways to reach out. Social media, local events, maybe even a community meeting to gauge interest. Her face lit up. Exactly. We can create a network, something powerful. If we can pull in enough voices, we could really create a movement. Jack's heart raced at the sheer potential of it all. They were standing at the forefront of something tremendous. But a nagging whisper within him reminded him of Mr. Porter's warning. The establishment wouldn't take kindly to their audacity. But we have to be careful, he said, his tone shifting to caution as a shadow crept back into his thoughts. There are very real risks involved. We'll be smart, Maria assured him, her lips tightening into a determined line. If we work together and plan everything, we can safeguard ourselves. We will not let fear win. Their hands met across the table, fingers intertwining as a wave of solidarity surged between them. They were doing this together, facing the unknown as a team. Suddenly, the cafe door swung open, and Jack's heart skipped a beat as he caught a glimpse of Tom, one of Mr. Porter's associates. His eyes flicked around the cafe, scanning the patrons before landing on Jack and Maria. Jack's stomach twisted. Quick! He whispered to Maria, pulling his hand back. Act casual. Tom approached their table, and a confident smirk crossed his face. Well, if it isn't the dynamic duo, he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. What are you two plotting? Shouldn't you be spending your time playing it safe? Jack could feel the heat rising in his cheeks. Nothing you should be concerned with, Tom, he replied, forcing a smile he didn't feel. Is that so? Tom leaned in slightly, lowering his voice as if sharing a secret. You know, I'd hate to see you get caught up in something that doesn't end well, just a friendly warning. Maria shifted, her eyes narrowing. Thanks for your concern, but we can manage just fine. Jack felt a rush of adrenaline as Tom backed away, his eyes still fixed on them. Just remember, the world loves a good show, but the curtain can drop fast, he called over his shoulder, the door chiming as he left. Once he was gone, the tension in the cafe snapped back into their bubble. Did you see that? Jack exclaimed, heart pounding. He was clearly sent to intimidate us. Let them try, Maria replied defiantly, fire lighting her gaze. This only proves we're on the right path. They're scared of what we can do. Jack took a long, steady breath, a flicker of hope igniting within him. They were already in this deeper than they anticipated, and any fear just made their resolve stronger. Let us get to work, Jack said. We have a movement to build. As they began to discuss ideas, the excitement grew, filling the space between them. Yet, deep down, Jack knew this was just the beginning. The real challenge lay ahead, and every word they said might be watched, every move scrutinized. What had they signed up for? Were they ready to awaken the tide of change, knowing it could crash back hard? And in that moment, Jack's phone buzzed in his pocket, a familiar sound that sent a shiver down his spine. It was another message from Mr. Porter. Would it be a fresh warning or the shattering revelation they dreaded? Jack pulled out his phone, his heart pounding as he read the message. The screen illuminated a single line, "Meet me. I have information that could change everything." It was terse, yet it felt like a threat wrapped in an offer. Who is that? Maria asked, her brow furrowing. Mr. Porter, Jack muttered. The urgency in his voice made her sit up straighter. What does he want? Her curious gaze fixed on him, the unease from moments earlier returning. "I have no idea," he replied, glancing toward the cafe entrance, half expecting Tom to come back. Maria leaned in. "You can't just ignore it, Jack. This could be important." He swallowed hard, wrestling with the choice. Maybe it's just a trap. Maybe he wants to scare us into backing down. She reached for his arm, steadying him. But what if it's not? What if it's something that could really help us? Jack's mind raced. The stakes were escalating. Was this where they turned from hopeful dreamers into targets? But what if Porter had uncovered information that could strengthen their cause, or worse, end it before it even began? "Let's meet him," Jack finally said. "But we need a plan." Maria nodded, determination shining in her eyes. "We can't let him dictate what we do. We can go in prepared, knowing what we want." As they mapped out a rough strategy, they tossed ideas back and forth. The meeting point would be at a small park where they often sensed peace between the chaos of their lives. They agreed to stay alert. Jack felt a tumult of emotions as the minutes melted away. He thought about what could be at stake, but he also thought about the people he'd met on this journey, their stories, their faces. The community they wanted to build. "Jack," Maria said softly, pulling him from his thoughts. "Whatever happens, remember why we started. Fear can't control us," he smiled, grateful for her calming presence. "You're right. We've come too far to turn back now." After a couple of nervous glances at the clock, they set off toward the park. Jack mentally prepared himself for whatever lay ahead, but he couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to step into a crosshairs of decisions that could reshape everything. The trees of the park swayed gently in the wind as they approached the meeting spot. His heart pounded in anticipation. This time, instead of feeling vulnerable, he chose to embrace the little thrill of defiance that bloomed in his chest. They were taking control. "Do you see him?" Maria asked, scanning the area. Jack squinted, catching sight of a figure in a dark coat leaning against a bench. "Yeah, over there." As they walked closer, Jack's stomach tightened. But something about the way Porter stood up straight, waiting, read as different from their previous encounters. There was a subtle confidence in his posture, like he held cards that could either break or elevate them. When they approached, Porter's expression shifted. "Jack, Maria," he said, his tone surprisingly neutral. "I appreciate your punctuality. What do you have for us?" Jack asked, cutting straight to the chase. Porter's eyes flickered between them, gauging their reactions. "I assume you're not here to play safe. You're ready for what comes next." "Just tell us what you know," Maria said, her voice steady. With an appraising look, Porter began. "What I'm about to tell you could change everything you think you know about my connections and this whole initiative." Jack's pulse quickened. Was this the revelation they needed, or were they stepping into yet another trap of deception? "Are you ready for the truth?" Porter asked, his eyes narrowing, as if he were about to expose the very foundations of their hopes. Before they could answer, a loud shout rang out from near the playground, breaking the tense atmosphere. Jack and Maria instinctively turned to see a crowd gathering, tension brewing in the air once more. "What now?" Jack whispered, confused. "Things are about to get more complicated," Maria replied, but her gaze remained locked on the chaos unfolding. Jack turned back to Porter, his heart racing, unsure of what bombshell was about to drop. The curiosity of their next step melded with a warning in his gut. This was only the beginning. Whatever happens next will test us, he thought. Are we truly prepared to face the fallout? And just like that, everything felt precariously balanced on the edge of calamity, setting the stage for the unknown that was about to erupt. The shout echoed across the park, turning heads and drawing anxious murmurs from the small gathering of people. Jack's heart raced as he absorbed the scene unfolding before him. A young mother waved her arms frantically while two older men stood nearby, their faces twisted in confusion. Was someone hurt? Had there been an accident? Stay close, he whispered to Maria, gripping her hand tightly. Do you think we should help? She asked, her eyes darting between the commotion and Porter, who now appeared uncertain, his professional demeanor slipping. We should see what is going on, Jack replied, a mixture of adrenaline and fear propelling him forward. They were there to confront Porter, but this felt more immediate, more critical. As they approached the crowd, the mother's voice floated through the rising buzz. Someone has to stand up to him. He can't just do this. Jack and Maria exchanged a glance. That plea was raw and desperate, stirring something deep within him. He pushed his way to the front, Maria hot on his heels. When they reached the edge of the circle, Jack's stomach dropped. A young girl, no older than 8, was standing beneath a large oak tree, tears streaming down her cheeks. Beside her was a tall man in a suit, arms crossed, wearing a condescending smirk. This is ridiculous. You kids just don't understand how to shut up. The girl shouted, taking a step forward, her voice shaking but defiant. The crowd murmured. Kids were gathering alongside their parents, all of them curious and concerned. This was no longer just a localized case of bullying, it had evolved into a spectacle, a confrontation that felt pervasive, like something larger than just one little girl against one smug adult. Jack felt a pulse of energy build inside him. It was the same feeling he had when he decided to stand up for his community, to fight against everything that felt unjust. Hey! He called out, taking a step closer, his voice firm yet calm. People turned to look, some eyes wide with surprise. The suited man straightened, clearly taken aback. What do you want? I want this to stop. You can't just bully someone because you think you're powerful, Jack said, heart hammering. The challenge of speaking out made him feel alive, charged with purpose. Maria was right next to him, eyes ablaze. You have no idea what impact this has. That girl deserves strength, not your scorn. The man turned red, frustration flickering behind his eyes. You don't know what you're talking about. This is how the world works. Then it's time for that to change, Jack retorted, buoyed by the ripple of support he felt from the crowd around him. With a surprising shift, people began stepping forward, echoing their agreement. The silent chorus of nods grew, solidarity barking life into the moment. Jack glanced at the girl, her tears gradually replaced by a spark of hope. Just then, a side glance at Porter revealed a flicker of admiration in his gaze. Jack, he said, his voice barely a murmur but heavy with weight. Maybe you're onto something. Jack paused. Could this outburst lead to something more than just an isolated event? Could it tap into a bigger movement within their community? As the man sputtered in indignation, Jack felt the tension of the impending decisions weigh heavily on him. Was this what they had sought when they agreed to confront Porter? A chance to start a movement. A chance to reclaim their fight? But there was no time to dwell, the raw energy in the air was pulsing, cracking open an opportunity. The crowd shifted, ready for action, while the girl stood taller beside him, emboldened by the unexpected support. Let us keep this going, Jack whispered to Maria, excitement flooding his system. This is our moment. And as the crowd began chanting, the atmosphere charged with hope, Jack realized that was just the beginning. What they would each decide next, would dictate everything. Could this be the moment that changes everything? He thought, as the rallying cry rang out, filling the park with fervor. The world felt electric with potential, and Jack understood they were on the verge of something monumental, but would they take that leap? The chaos in the park buzzed with a kind of raw energy that Jack had never experienced before. It was as if the collective voices of the crowd had ignited a fire in his chest, urging him to push harder. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. The suited man, flustered and angry, had become the embodiment of everything they'd been fighting against. Let us show him how strong we are together. Jack shouted, echoing the spirit of the crowd. The small girl beside him seemed to glow with newfound courage as she lifted her chin, eyes fierce. The bystanders cheered, and the sound echoed like a wave, an affirming tide that swept over the park. Jack turned to Maria, her face lit with determination. He could see their anxiety transform into solidarity, fear merging with bravery. The man in the suit sputtered, glancing around as the murmurs of dissent rose in volume. This isn't over. He barked, but it sounded weak now, as if he was the one losing power. Oh yes, it is. A voice boomed from the back. A burly man stepped forward, arms crossed, clearly unyielding. No one gets to make kids feel small. You don't belong here. Right. Someone else chimed in. Stand up for her. No more bullying. Jack's heart swelled. This wasn't just their fight anymore, it was a community uprising. Each voice added fuel to the fire. Jack felt the rush of adrenaline, the kind that comes when something huge is unfolding in front of you, something that can change lives. He linked arms with Maria, their shared resolve strong against the backdrop of chaos. Let us do this. Jack shouted, motioning people to join him. Let us reclaim our space. Together. At that moment, the crowd surged forward, inching closer to the man who had been so quick to belittle. And in the midst of that surge, Jack felt the girl's small hand squeeze his. She was standing firm beside him, her gaze fixed on the man. You're not going to hurt me anymore, she declared, fierce and unwavering. The man's bravado faltered, and Jack seized the opportunity. No one has the right to diminish another, no matter their age or position. We're here for each other. The crowd erupted, voices rising in a chant for justice, for equality. Jack felt the vibrations travel through him, it was a surge of collective strength. And for the first time in a long time, he felt hope. But among the jubilation, a prick of uncertainty crept in. What if this moment slipped away? The chaos could disperse as quickly as it had built. Jack caught a glimpse of Porter, who stood off to the side, his expression unreadable. Was he still with them? Porter. We're not finished here. Jack called, his voice carrying across the growing din. The man's brow furrowed, and for a second, Jack thought he might turn away, but then something flickered in his eyes. As the chants continued, Jack turned back to the girl, who was smiling through her tears now. He felt something shift between them, understanding, recognition of a shared struggle. Would this moment empower her as it was empowering all of them? The crowd pulsed with emotion. Jack raised his arm as if to gather them in a collective embrace, to remind everyone of the change they sought together. What if they could turn this single day into a cornerstone for something more? Let us organize. Let us be the change in our community. He proposed, excitement buzzing in the air. They had the momentum now, could they keep it going? As voices roared in agreement, Jack's heart filled with anticipation. What would it take to turn this spark into a blazing movement? And what would they face next in their journey to claim their power? The future stretched out before them like an unwritten chapter, filled with both promise and uncertainty. Jack could almost taste the freedom they sought, but where would it lead them next? The roar of the crowd wrapped around Jack like a warm blanket. Hope pulsed through him, each chant ringing with promise. Faces in the crowd gleamed with determination, lights of courage flickering in the afternoon sun. He could feel the weight of their collective will. This was not just a passing moment, it felt monumental. Hold the line. Jack shouted, glancing back to the girl at his side. Her gaze remained locked on the man in the suit. The fear that once shadowed her features had been replaced by an unwavering focus. She was their symbol, now a beacon of resilience. The man, jarred by their unity, recoiled as the chant grew louder. You think this changes anything? He shouted, but his voice cracked. The confidence he once wielded like a weapon now seemed fragile. The crowd pressed on, undeterred. Yeah. We'll show you what we can do. Someone yelled back, and that perfect blend of bravery and defiance only amplified the energy. Jack felt the adrenaline surge. He had never imagined he could be a part of something that mattered this much, something that felt like a tidal wave of change, Porter remained still, watching from the sidelines, his eyes narrowed. Jack felt a pang of doubt but quickly shook it off. Now was not the time for hesitation. They needed every voice, every heart in this fight. "Maria, let us reach out to him," Jack called, nodding toward Porter. With resolve, he approached, dragging Maria with him. The connection of their arms anchored him. He wouldn't face this moment alone. They stepped toward a man who was caught between confusion and defensiveness. "It's time to join us, Porter," Jack urged, trying to quell the tumult of emotions swirling in his chest. "Be part of this." Porter hesitated before taking a deep breath. I just don't want to rock the boat," he mumbled, staring down. "Rocking the boat is what we need," Maria piped up, her small voice rising above the chaotic murmur. "Look at how many of us are here. We're strong together." For a moment, a flicker of understanding crossed Porter's face. Jack saw the shift, the realization that he wasn't alone anymore. The tide was turning for him, just like it was for all of them. "Okay," he finally said, his voice low but firm. "Let us do this." The crowd erupted again, a response that lifted Jack's spirit. Suddenly, someone in the back shouted, "Let us build something for ourselves. A community center. A place where we can all gather." "Yes," Jack shouted back, inspired by the voice at the rear. "Let us make a home for our voices. A sanctuary where we can overcome together." A wave of ideas surged through the crowd. A hub for support, a platform for dreams. Jack could see the gears turning in people's minds. This was just the beginning. As talks of what they could create spun into actions they could take, Jack felt something shift within him. There was an undeniable sense of purpose. This wasn't just about opposing the man in the suit anymore, it was about building their future. But amidst the excitement, doubt whispered again. What if they couldn't sustain it? What if challenges lay ahead that would test their unity? "Together, we rise," Jack shouted, raising his fist high. "Together, we create." The crowd echoed back, a resounding affirmation that shook the very ground they stood on. But even as the energy soared, an unshakable thought remained. What would it take to keep this flame alive? What obstacles would they face beyond this day? And just then, a shrill whistle broke through the cacophony, cutting the air like a knife. Jack turned and his heart sank. A group of stern police officers surged toward them, and he knew something was about to change dramatically. The officers stood like stone statues, their presence casting a long, chilling shadow over the gathered crowd. Jack felt the adrenaline rush through him, intertwining with the fear now gripping his heart. He caught a glimpse of Maria, her confidence wavering as the reality of the situation struck like a cold gust of wind. "Stay calm," he murmured, gripping her hand tightly. The officer in the front approached, his voice booming and authoritative. "You need to disperse. This gathering is unauthorized." A wave of murmurs rippled through the crowd. People shuffled, uncertainty creeping in. Jack's mind raced. Would all they had built in this moment unravel so quickly? "Wait!" Jack called out, stepping forward. "We are not here to cause trouble. We're fighting for our community." The officer's eyes hardened. "It doesn't matter. You can't just take over public space like this." Jack could feel tension boiling beneath the surface. He glanced at the crowd, searching for the strength to encourage them. This isn't just a crowd. This is a movement. The word seemed to hang in the air, igniting flickers of resolve among the people. Jack turned to face the officer again. "We have a right to be heard. We're fighting for our future, for equal opportunities, for our families." "Yeah," someone called, raising their voice. "We won't back down." The chorus of agreement rippled and built strength, washing over the initial fear. And with it came unity, arms entwining, voices soaring, faces lighting up in defiance. "Jack, it might be time to retreat," Maria whispered urgently, her eyes darting to the officers. No. Jack shot back, the fire igniting within him, a deep-rooted determination fueling his words. We can't go back now. If we give in here, we're giving up on everything. He reflected on everything Maria had been through, everything they had faced. This wasn't just a moment, it was the beginning of change. He turned back to the crowd, hands raised high. Enough is enough. We stand for each other, we fight together. The crowd roared their agreement, awakening a fresh wave of momentum. Jack felt exhilarated, filled with belief that they could truly elevate this discussion into something perpetual, something lasting, but the officer stepped closer, unfazed by their fervor. You're facing consequences. You need to go now, or there will be repercussions. Jack stood his ground, heart racing, adrenaline coursing through his veins. He gave the crowd a look, the shared understanding that they were in this together. We will no longer let them dictate our worth. His voice cut through the air like a bold declaration. Courage rippled through the assembly, voices rose high in unison, yet a shadow lurked behind that strength. Jack's mind briefly flicked to the consequences of their rebellion. The officer narrowed his gaze. You've been warned. This is your last chance. At that moment, he spotted Maria's fierce expression. They're trying to intimidate us. She was saying, her eyes brimming with determination. Jack felt the weight of that resolve anchor him. These moments tested not just his commitment but his very character. Suddenly, he took a deep breath, steadying himself. If we leave now, we're telling the world that our dreams don't matter. We owe it to ourselves, not just today's struggles but every child and family who needs us. Another lock of agreement surged through the crowd. People stepped in closer, ready to stand firm alongside him. Now or never. Someone shouted, and that sentiment ignited a firestorm among the masses. They rallied around, a collective heartbeat that resonated throughout the park, defying every threat. Jack's heart soared as voices echoed, uniting for justice, full of energy that spoke louder than the threat of force. The officer, realizing he was losing control, called for backup. But amid the chaos, the phone in Jack's pocket buzzed again, startling him. A quick glance revealed a new message from Mr. Porter. I think I can help. What did that mean? Jack's thoughts raced in a whirlwind of possibilities. Could Porter be willing to leverage his connections? The officer's attention sharpened on Jack once more. This is your last opportunity. But Jack could hear the crowd's vibrations, feel their stories mingling with his. This was their moment. No more looking back. Jack shouted, determined. We walk forward together, and they can't silence us. As the police drew nearer, the crowd's chant swelled even louder, ricocheting against the park walls. It was a stark reminder that change didn't come without courage. Jack fully embraced the weight of responsibility resting upon him and Maria and everyone there. This wasn't just about today, it was about their future. A moment of hesitation fell over the officers, caught off guard by an unexpected passion that filled the air. Jack seized that moment. Let us show them what we are. He roared, arms raised high. And amidst the chaos and loud whispers of protest, the collective spirit merged into something beautiful, a tapestry woven of resilient voices rising defiantly into the air. Together. The crowd chanted, emboldened by the electric atmosphere. Time hung suspended, thick with promise, but Jack knew they were determined to forge ahead, be the change they had dreamed of, and honor every battle fought before them. As the tension reached its pinnacle, Jack felt a sudden exhilaration sweep through. They were taking their stand. In that moment, he had never felt more alive. The crowd stood strong, ready to face whatever fate awaited them on this defining day of courage, hand in hand, hearts ignited. Their voices echoed beyond the park, reverberating through the streets, calling others to join, sparking revolutions they never anticipated. Are you ready? Jack's spirit soared, fuller than ever before, ignited by hope and camaraderie. They weren't just fighting for themselves. They were fighting for every voice that deserved to be heard, every individual that had been crushed under the weight of apathy. As the first officer stepped through the crowd, Jack knew there was no backing down now. They were just beginning to weave their greater narrative. In that moment, everything changed. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, comment your reactions and feelings about this ending, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share. True fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.